Chapter 14. The Men in Black. Auric landed on the ground, exhausted. He was nauseous and all his muscles hurt as if he were beaten up. All around him, everything was dark and blurry. "Auric!" cried Yumi. "I sense you far away." "It's because you have the helmet on," his friend insisted. "We're back on Earth. Take it off." Auric obeyed, and little by little managed to sense his hands again in the helmet that sat heavily on his head. With some trouble, he removed the strap and finally took off the device. Yumi was sitting on the ground beside him in the apartment. She was having trouble breathing. "Are you okay?" asked the schoolboy. "Bad. It's like the lasers hit me pretty hard," she responded. "Same for me." Auric stood up and started to stretch to loosen his muscles. "What do we do?" he asked. "Do you think we should go back into this thing?" "To hunt down Hopper's ghost," replied Yumi. "I doubt that'd be a good idea." "But then," Auric started to say. "Shh!" his friend suddenly interrupted him. "Listen." The young boy hushed up and focused on a strange noise. Coming from out the window, apart from the endless Sunday traffic, a rhythmic sound could be heard, like pow, pow, pow. It was the propellers of a helicopter. Auric pointed to the window silently, but Yumi shook her head. The noise she heard was coming from the door, from the steps. Someone must have perceived the reactivation of the replica and came to take control of the building. The two friends opened the door wide and snuck out into the dark hall. There they heard a masculine voice say, "Boss, they're over here." Men were climbing the staircase. Auric got ready to slide down the railing to throw himself on the assailants, but Yumi signaled to him not to move. They huddled close to the railing so as not to be seen and held their breaths. Two large men with short hair wearing sunglasses and long black overcoats were rapidly scaling the steps and passed in front of them. The students dashed to the stairs. The first man nearly grabbed Yumi's arm and tried to catch her, in vain. He cried, "Stop, you two! You don't know what kind of a mess—" "Get on the ground! You are under arrest!" added the second man with a lisp. The two friends didn't listen to them and threw themselves onto the stairs, but only a simple slip-up and they'd end up on the ground and be taken. "We are armed, guys! Don't aggravate the situation!" yelled the man with a lisp. The other hollered on his walkie-talkie. "This is Weasel and Ferret to Lone Wolf. They're coming. They are on the 4th floor. "There's a third man," Auric murmured to Yumi. They were on the 1st floor when they crossed paths with Lone Wolf. He was also dressed all in black and was holding an enormous pistol at his hand. He aimed it at them and spoke. "Well, kids, the race ends here." But Auric and Yumi didn't listen to him either and ran down the hall to dive behind the final door. They were in an apartment identical to the one they just left, except that this one was empty. There was just carpet and some horrible wallpaper, plus some old abandoned chairs in a corner. Auric closed the door, blocking it off with a chair by placing it on the doorknob. What do you want to do now?" asked Yumi. "We're completely trapped." Auric pointed to the window. "When we entered the building, I noticed that there was a ledge and gutters in the facade. We could maybe—" "What? You're crazy!" she protested. "We're not in a movie." "Do you have a better idea?" he said, irritated, because the door isn't going to last for long. He hurried to the window and leaned it on the ledge. "Come on," he said to Yumi. "We're going to make it." It indeed wasn't like in the movies, where the ledges were always large enough to cross with ease. This one was barely 10 centimeters wide, just enough for the tips of their toes. And the closest gutter was 2 meters away. The two friends kept an eye on the street and the trees and the footpaths below, and saw a big black sedan, doors open, parked crookedly just in front of the door to the building. A little further away, a young pizza man had parked his orange and green scooter and was taking a pizza out from the luggage rack. Suddenly, the door gave way and Lone Wolf rushed into the apartment. Not the time to hesitate, Auric and Yumi ventured onto the ledge, with their bodies against the wall, faces pressed against the rough rock surface, and toes contracted to get a better footing. Auric leaned out as much as possible and managed to reach the metal gutter. He grabbed it desperately and stretched out his hand to help Yumi. Unfortunately, in the meantime, Weasel and Ferret came out from the building and got back into their car. They watched them from below. "Make sure you don't hurt yourself, kids," the man with a lisp spoke. "You're done running away here." "You're dreaming," muttered Auric. Slowly, the two friends slipped across the length of the gutter, but when they made it 2 meters from the ground, the man in black approached them, laughing. "Yumi, we have to jump," whispered Auric. "And then what? What do you think we do then?" He looked nervously below, looking for an idea that he managed to find without taking too much time. "The pizza man's scooter. We're going to take it." "Are you crazy?" exclaimed Yumi. "We don't have a choice," he responded. "On 3, we jump. 1, 2, 3. They launched themselves from the building and landed roughly on Weasel and Ferret. "Ah!" the two men cried. "Come on, Yumi!" cried Auric, rushing towards the scooter. "Quick, jump on behind me!" He started up the engine and left like a rocket, while Lone Wolf dashed into the building. Without waiting, the man jumped into the sedan with his two partners. Not only were Auric and Yumi not wearing helmets, but they had stolen a scooter. That's not to forget that they had broke open a door to an apartment and were now being chased down by a big car with 3 armed men on board. "What a day!" snickered Auric while slipping between cars. After Rue Lamagny, they went through a roundabout which took them to Molière Avenue. but they leaned so much while turning that the kickstand of the scooter rubbed against the bitumen and produced a cloud of sparks. "Try not to get us killed!" cried Yumi, hanging on to her friend. "Look behind us and tell me if they're gaining on us." The sedan was indeed approaching closer and closer, especially whenever the scooter went down a long avenue without traffic. "I get it!" exclaimed Ulrich. "We'll stay on the back roads." They turned into the first small street on the right, then veered right away onto another on the left. In order to lose their assailants, the young boy went down a closed street and barely avoided an old van that beeped its horn at them to express its discontent. "Here, they can no longer follow us!" Ulrich cried out in a triumphant tone. "Actually, they can," replied his friend. "Look up!" Yumi pointed to the helicopter that, just like a big black buzzing fly, hadn't lost sight of them once since they left Rue Lemanie. "I forgot they also had a helicopter," sighed Ulrich. "All right, let's go back to the park where we were this morning. We'll lose them there." He took another 2 turns again at full speed, then sped into a long Diane Avenue that surrounded the park, but the black sedan suddenly emerged from around a corner, risking to overthrow the situation. The car headed straight towards them. Ulrich drove onto the footpath and began beeping like crazy to warn the pedestrians to get out of the way. "Over there! There's an entrance!" hollered Yumi, pointing towards an entryway in the park's metal gate. "Watch out for that guy!" cried Yumi, panicking. "And the lady with the stroller!" The helicopter was still above them, and the sedan was catching up. The scene looked like one out of an action film, except that this situation was real. "We need something to slow them down," Ulrich stated aloud. "Like what?" replied his friend. "We've only got pizzas on us." "Well, that's fine." "What do you mean?" Ulrich dodged a kid playing ball, giving him a smile so as not to scare him, then accelerated onto the gravel path. "Throw them at them!" Yumi moved to the seat of the scooter, managed to open the box full of pizzas, then released the first round of munitions. That one's a capriciosa pizza, judging by the scent," said Ulrich. "That makes me hungry." "You think this is the time for that?" responded his friend. "Okay, I'm ready." Ulrich slowed down to let the sedan approach. Ferret opened the passenger window, stuck his head out, and clutched his gun. But when the car was only several meters away, Yumi threw the first pizza, which hit the man square in the face. His sunglasses slid while the mozzarella and tomato sauce dripped from his hair and clothes. "Damn kids!" yelled the man. "Bombs 2 and 3, 4 cheeses and margarita!" exclaimed Yumi while throwing pizzas onto the windscreen. The sedan swerved and turned on its windscreen wipers, but too late. The driver didn't see the empty bank on the right, and the car headed straight into it, then became stuck. The shock made smoke come out from the radiator. The 3 men in black crawled out from the car one after the other. "You have deadly aim," sung Ulrich in admiration. "All right, now let's get out of here," responded Yumi with a smile. Under the close surveillance of the black helicopter, Yumi and Ulrich left the scooter near the Albert metro station. They hid the keys under the seat and added 50 euros there as well, which was all they had left. Ulrich would have just as well skipped over the reimbursement, but Yumi threw him a look and said, "Let's at least do something good today." They rushed into the halls of the metro and caught their breath. "We did it," sighed Ulrich. "At least there the helicopter can't follow us anymore, and the metro system is way too large. I challenge them to guess where we're going." "Also," Yumi added, "I added the telephone number of the pizzeria of the scooter we took. As soon as we get to the train station, I'll call them to tell them to go pick it up." Ulrich agreed and observed his friend. She had rosy cheeks, hair all messed up from the wind, and a tired smile, but in his eyes she had never been so beautiful before. It was his way to tell, "We are more than just friends." Wasn't this the best time now to make it clear where they stand? "Yumi," he stammered, "I don't know if you remember. It was several days ago at Caddick, when I wanted to talk to you, and we were interrupted by Sissy." "I remember very well," she replied, placing a finger gently in his mouth. "But we should get going. We can talk about it another time, don't you think? We have all the time in the world ahead of us." She approached him and gave him a small kiss on the cheek. Her mouth was soft, and her beautiful perfume floated in the air. All that was needed to make his head spin. It was true, they had all the time in the world. He took her by the hand, and together they passed through the metro. They needed to return to Caddick as quickly as possible to tell Jeremy and the others that what they had discovered. It was 8 hours in the morning at Washington, but a lot of activity still continued to go on in the Bureau. For those working in certain domains, there really was no weekend off. Like every day, Dido showed up at 7 on the dot. She drank some coffee while leafing through the news and seeing what happened the night before. It was amazing how the journalist managed to write everything without ever succeeding in making the reader understand what really happened. The woman turned on her computer and started to study several reports when the phone rang. "A call from Belgium," announced Maggie, her secretary. "Send it through to me." With these words, Dido grew an ugly grin. It was an unexpected call, and for her, unexpected calls were never good news. There was a click while Maggie transferred the line. Then, "This is Lone Wolf," said a masculine voice. "Dido?" "Yes, it's me." The man was calling her on a public line. She could hear children crying and people angry in the background. Someone said, "It ith clear that ith that fifth small fiffy faffib is of the best quality. Then a woman cried, "You're nothing but delinquents and thugs! I'm going to call the police!" Dido began to grow impatient and tapped her jewelry-covered fingers on the desk. "Lone Wolf," she said, "I hope that you realize that this call is in violation of all the security norms." "Certainly, Dido, madam, but this is an emergency. The kids found the apartment on Rue Lemagny. That's the bad news. That could ruin the entire day." "Did they find the replica?" asked the woman. "Yes, madam, and they even activated it. We showed up 10 minutes after the signal was triggered. We unfortunately weren't prepared for a red alert here in Brussels." "Bunch of useless," Dido exclaimed outside of her normal self. "I even organized for you to have a team ready, and you were supposed to be." "Well," replied Lone Wolf stupidly, "but maybe they weren't able to enter the replica either, like what happened to us." "They're kids!" the woman hollered into the phone. "We don't know what would happen were people of that age to try it. Give me a detailed account of what happened immediately." "Well," Lone Wolf continued, "we received the alert and we rushed to the scene. Agent Weasel, Ferret, and me. And Agents Martin and Fox were also on board a helicopter. But the kids managed to get away from us. They were armed, madam." "Armed?" Dido asked, surprised. "Well, yes," exhaled a voice behind Lone Wolf. "Explain to her how the pizzas were excellent weapons." "That's enough!" roared the woman. "I don't want to hear anything more of it. Where are the kids?" "The helicopter wasn't able to follow them once they reached the metro," Lone Wolf continued. "But this isn't a problem. They are surely headed towards the train station to return home. We can follow them up to Caddock and then intercept them." Dido sighed. She couldn't stand working with idiots. "Forget it," she ordered, mortified. "You've done enough damage for today. Just avoid having the people around you call the police. That's all we need, for our government to excuse itself to the local forces. And then return to the apartment on Rue Lemagny. I want 3 men to watch it day and night until the next order. And forget the kids. I'll contact our agent at Caddock. They will resolve the situation." "The agent at Caddock," said Lone Wolf, surprised. "But, madam, he has no longer been in service since—" "An agent may never retire and never goes out of service, Lone Wolf. When you work with us, you don't leave so easily. Remember that, you—" Dido hung up the telephone with a slam. She smiled, then returned to the receiver. "Maggie," she said, more calm. "Yes," the secretary responded. "Find me the phone number of the agent for the City of the Iron Tower in France. We have an emergency."